we are going to be playing some Hoplite or Hoplite, depending on your pronunciation, whether traditional or modern. But we're going to start off in an easy battle today, and that is Tanagra. This was the Spartans under the command of Nicomedes versus the Athenians under the command of Myronidas. So, as you can see, there's not a lot of pieces during this battle. On the bottom of the screen, you have the Spartans and their allies, and on the top, you have the Athenians and their allies. You can see right from the start, the Athenians have the numerical advantage. Tanagra was a typical battle fought in the 5th century BC before the Persian invasions, wherein both sides simply pushed and shoved each other. Phalangeal ranks were most likely at depths of 6 to 8, and the Spartans were only professional soldiers. The Spartans were the only professional soldiers. Most of the others were like the Athenians and such, typical to slightly better than conscripts, basically. Although the hoplite fighting formation of the time was still the most effective. So um, everyone else besides the Spartans were self-armed militia farmers. Like I was just saying, it is part of the initial war between Athens and Sparta. So this was a battle that I think kicked off the Peloponnesian Wars. The battle was fought at Tanagra and Boeotia, and the Athenians were joined by cavalry from the Thessalian allies. But these went over to the Spartans during the battle, and you can see the Thessalian cavalry on the top of the screen alongside both flanks of the Athenian line. They are the only single counters. Everything else in this battle is a double hex phalanx counter. Phalanx is a relative term. The Spartan spear blocks weren't necessarily a phalanx, but um, phalanx in modern terms they weren't a phalanx. When we think phalanx, we think of the Macedonian pike blocks, etc. Phalanx was pretty much just a word for a big block of spearmen. Um, so if you're confused by that, we'll clear that up right now. But like I said, the Athenians were joined by the cavalry from the Thessalian allies, and these went over to the Spartans during the battle. The Athenians brought a large contingent of hoplites that was supplemented by a number of allies, including the Argives, who sent 1,000 heavy infantry. The total number given by Thucydides is 14,000, not including cavalry, of which there would be a very small amount. This was a large army from a city-state at this time. The allied Spartan army, led by Nicomedes, consisted of 1,500 Spartans and 10,000 allied soldiers. A group of Thessalian cavalry, of course, joined the Spartan side from the Athenian army during the battle, and after heavy losses on both sides, victory was declared for the Spartans and their allies. So that is pretty much the background of this battle, Tanagra. We're going to be using the normal rules today. I may replay this battle immediately after using the simple Great Battles of History version and give you the comparisons between the two, such as the amount of play time, the ease of playability, the amount of lookups on charts, etc. For those of you who do play the GBoH system, the older games like Alexander or SPQR. This is a newer game of the system, and they've kind of taken this system in a different direction, starting off with, oh, which one was it? Chariots of Fire, maybe. Devil's Horseman is also a little different, and it's kind of coming to a climax here with Hoplite, where instead of your initiative activations, initiative still plays a role, but instead of the initiative determining exactly what commander is going when, there's now a chit pull system in this game for each different command that you'll be using for. So for the Athenians this game, there's only one command, and that's the Athenian hoplite command. For the Spartans in this game, there's only one Spartan command, and that's the Spartan hoplite command. Now, along with the whatever command chits you get, you also get a momentum chip along with that. So each player will have their command chits plus their momentum chip. So in this game, each player will have two chits, their hoplite and momentum. Now, what momentum will allow you to do is pretty much the same thing as in the other games. It allows you to take an extra turn, even with somebody who has already had a turn to begin with in that very same turn. In this scenario, Tanagra, the Athenians can use their momentum chit as well to command the Thessalian cavalry, whereas the Spartans can use their momentum chit and try and bring the Athenian or the Thessalian cavalry over to their side. So that is going to be the uses of the chits in this game. And what we're going to do, we're going to play it out. I'll do the moves off camera and we'll do some of the combat live. And so you can see the die roll, see how it works. We'll play some shot counters, do some routing, rallying, etc. all here on camera so you can see how the game works and if it interests you. And we will go from there. So before we go any further here, I can spin this camera around. This is going to be upside down. The reason I'm not playing with the camera this way is because of that light glare right there, which if I set it over here, it might, yeah, that might work if I come from over here. And that way we have this, the Hoplite game turn tracker, which also keeps track of the route points of both armies. So yeah, I think we'll play with the camera right here. I'm not sure if that is going to crop out any of the battlefield. You know, maybe I was right with my first position. So yeah, I'll go back to the first position here in just a moment. But let me tell you the specific scenario rules for Tanagra. I got to go back to it here really quickly. And so we're using the Ephesus Tanagra Leuctra map, and the battlefield was usual for the era. It was completely flat and featureless, and that's another reason we're going to use this battle as well, because we don't have to worry about terrain, introducing you to terrain, cohesion hits. Those just stack up extra counters on top of your units and everything. Makes it that much more complicated. So I wanted to once again pick a very simple battle to begin with. The Athenians have the initial numerical advantage, although the hoplites are not quite as good as the Spartans. The Thessalians could change that all. The game will depend on tactics each player uses. There's no real favorite in the balance of this game. Game length is saying it's going to take about 2 hours. Initial deployment, there is very little information on this battle, so much of what we have here is what we gotten from Greek historians of the time and our quasi-educated guesses as to other detail. The Thessalian cavalry flip is mentioned. There does not appear to be any skirmishers or light infantry, which was common for this time. The Athenian player will start with the following counters, which is their hoplite command, which is Marionidas, who's the overall commander. He's over on the right flank with this far right hoplite unit, which was typical of the time. Commanders most of the time fought on the far right. It was a place of honor, I believe. The Athens hoplites, number 5 through 14, make up the majority of the line, and they also have the Argos hoplite unit, 1 unit down there, as well as the 2 units of light cavalry. The Spartan player, the hoplite command, the overall commander is Nicomedes, and he is on the Spartan right, which is our left at this time. You can see him stacked there with that counter. They have 2 units of Messene hoplites, 2 units of Corinthian hoplites, 2 units of Epidaurus hoplites, 1 unit of Spartan hoplites, and 1 unit of Elis hoplites, as well as Sicyon hoplites. Nicomedes is a Spartan overall commander and the formation commander for the hoplite command. The Spartan player then deploys his units in any hex rows 1440, or excuse me, 4400 or lower down to 3900 inclusive, but at least 3 hexes from the side edges of the map. The hoplites are deployed in contiguous hexes in any single row with the aforementioned deployment area. Nicomedes is placed with any friendly hoplite unit. I went ahead and I used the shown setup as the scenario depicts here, which is here. So that is the setup that I used. I think I got all of the unit placements right, although it doesn't matter. It does give you the freedom of choice. it's very hard to read these. I've never encountered a great battle history book where it's so hard to read the counters on the setup map. Um, yeah, it's almost impossible to read without extreme light. think I'm gonna have to get a magnifying glass. One thing I might try and do is take a high def picture with my phone and then zoom in, and I think that would actually help me read it before I have to spend the money on a magnifying glass. And by the way, guys, I have perfect 20/20 eyesight. I've never worn glasses or contacts a day in my life. So yeah, I find it extremely difficult to read those that printing on the setup. So the scenario special rules, the initiative, the Spartan player has initiative for the game first turn. After that, it'll be die roll plus commander initiative. The Thessalian cavalry, like we said, they have a chance of switching sides. The Athenians can activate them with their momentum chit, and the Spartan player may try to flip the Thessalians, getting them to join the Spartan side. To do this, he uses the momentum activation counter, which may then not be used to activate his hoplites. He then rolls a die. If the dice roll is a 6 through 9, the Thessalians are now controlled by the Spartan player and immediately activate. If either unit is engaged at the time, the units are automatically given disengage orders, no die roll necessary. They may be activated in subsequent Spartan momentum activation. If the die roll is 0 through 5, nothing happens other than having wasted a momentum activation. The Athenian player may not attempt to recover use of the Thessalians. Retreat edge, the Athenians retreat towards the south, which is behind them, and the Spartans retreat towards the north, which is directly behind them. Victory conditions. The Athenian army withdraws when units with route points totaling at least 45 have been eliminated, and the Spartan army withdraws when units routing reach totaling at least 35 have been eliminated. So the Spartans need to route 45 points of the Athenians, and the Athenians need to route 35 points of the Spartans. If the Thessalians desert and join the Spartans, those units count as route points against the Athenians as if they were eliminated. If the Spartans gain control of the Thessalian army, any Thessalian cavalry eliminated after they gain control count as route points against the Spartans. The army size and troop quality, Athenians have a total of 13 units. They have a total of 141 route points, so their route ratio is 30% flat. Their average tactical quality among all of these units down here is 5.8. That's their average. The Spartan, they have 9 units. They have 112 route points. Their route ratio is also 30%, and their average tactical quality among units is 6.2. So there's a 0.4, 4/10 difference between average tactical quality, which may make a big difference. So if we zoom in a little closer, let me see if we can kind of see here, but you can see that big number in the bottom of each unit here is a tactical quality. So you can see the light cavalry on over there on the left is 6. All these hoplites down here are 6 quality. Let's see if we have one 5 quality, which is the Argos 4th unit, and we have one Thessalian cavalry tactical quality 5, and that hoplite is also 6. So pretty much 6 all across with one weak hoplite unit there in the middle. And then we can come around here. Let's see. So you can see here they have one Corinthian hoplite unit on the flank, which is a 7 tactical quality. And then all the rest are 6 along the lines here. And then you have the Spartan hoplite unit, which is 7. So you can see the difference in tactical quality. It's not extreme, but it is there. So anyway, like I said, we're probably going to be viewing the battle from this side. I think it's just going to work better with the glare and the table space that I have kind of fits this camera here. So we will go ahead and get started here with turn 1. Give me just one moment. I need to get a cup for the activation chits, even though the Spartans are going first. And then I'll be right back. All right, so let me see if I can get this centered up there a little bit more. I think that should probably do it. So what we're looking at here is the very first turn, and the Spartans have the initiative here. They are going to use the Hoplite activation command. And so we are going to go ahead and advance towards the Athenian line with the Spartans. So the Spartan, or the Hoplite units in general, they have to make an advance towards combat roll, which it's on the back of standard charts and table player aid number 1 down there at the bottom. You can see it right there, Hoplite advance into combat table 6.38. And we're going to roll a d10. I didn't mention that in the first clip, which is all the die rolls are made on a single d10, which is included in the game here. So that is what we use. A 0 is not a 10, a 0 is a 0. So the highest dice roll you can have pretty much is a 9. But anyway, so we're going to roll 1d10 for every unit that moves that is activated here. The Spartan units, they are pretty much exempt from this rule because they are always going to be advancing in a trot. So I already placed a trot counter down there. Now, normally on a battle where there's lots and lots of units, you're going to be placing those counters on top of the unit itself. But in this game, since there's not a lot of units, there's a lot of spare room. I'm going to be able to kind of keep it more organized by spreading the counters out some, so we can still tell what counters on who, but it will still allow us to see the actual units themselves instead of covering them up with TQ checks, etc., etc. So the way activations work is I have activated the formation of the Spartan Hoplite command. So that command pretty much consists of every unit there, all the hoplite units. So that's the only formation that the Spartans have in this battle is their one hoplite command. Other battles have multiple commands, and that's where a lot of chit plays, a lot of momentums will come in handy, trumps even. If you're familiar with the trumping mechanism, we'll get into that here later. Probably not in this battle because, like I said, this is pretty much a head-on one formation versus one formation battle. So anyway, we're going to activate his formation. And his formation is entirely in command. It's whatever unit is in contact to or adjacent to the leader, which is that unit. So that unit is in command, plus any unit that is adjacent to, touching adjacent hexes, which is that one, that one, that one. So they're all in command because they're all linked. If a unit is out of command, we flip it over to its reverse side, and you can see on this counter it has a little white stripe down on the bottom, and that's how you would know that that specific unit is out of command. But since they are all in command, they are all top side up as of right now. But we're going to go ahead and roll. Now we know that the Spartans, they are going to be advancing in a trot. So we'll go ahead and we'll roll for all the rest of them before we actually go through these moves. And another thing about the hoplites is once you do a advanced combat roll, they have to move at that speed. They don't have a choice towards the enemy. So if they're trotting, they're going to be moving. Their movement allowance is going to be 4. So on clear terrain here, they're going to move 4 spaces, no question about it. If it's a walk, they're going to move 3, and if it's a run, they're going to move 5. But if it's a run, there's a possibility that they're going to take tactical hits, because their formation is getting loose. Parts of it are getting, lagging behind or moving out in front. So it's not that solid block of hoplites. So that's how you got to really look at this game in particular is the tactical quality is their ability to hold their individual formation, their phalanx, keep their shields locked, keep that shield wall and their spears out forward into a nice tight packed formation. So the tactical quality, once they start taking hits, you can see where shields are having holes in them, not the shields themselves, but the shield wall is starting to have holes appear in the frontage of the unit, or one line is a foot further back, allowing that enemy to get a little bit deeper into their formation. So that's really how you have to look at it in this game. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to roll. So we're going to roll for the first Messine hoplite unit there, and we roll an 8, which an 8 is going to be a run. So they are going to be running towards the enemy, and that's not what we want them to do. So we'll put a run counter next to them. Then we'll go here to the second machine unit, and that's going to be a 5, which is going to be a trot. So we'll put a trot counter right there. And then the next is the Ellis Hoplite unit, and that's going to be a 0, which is going to be a walk. So they're going to be walking, and you're going to see just how disorderly Spartan or Hoplite lines can become. And the next one is going to be a 4, which is going to be a trot. That is the Epidaurus. And then the next is also Epidaurus. It's going to be an 8. And they are going to run. Let's see if I have a run counter there. There we go. We'll try and roll these on the board. I don't think I was rolling on the camera. Next one is a Sicyon, whatever. 9, which is also going to be a run. So it looks like you have a couple hoplite units in competition with one another, want to get out there and prove their worth. Next one is going to be a 6, which is a trot. That's the 3rd Corinthian unit. And the last Corinthian unit is going to be a 4, which is a trot as well. So we're having a trot, trot, run, run, trot, walk, trot, run, trot. So somebody over here is taking their time. Who is it? The Ellis unit. They're going to be walking out. But anyway, so now we can go ahead and move here. Now, there's also a rule called drift right, which was a way to account because some ancient historians believed that or noted that during battles that they witnessed or had heard of, that hoplite units had tended to kind of drift right to accommodate for the extreme weight of their hopla on their shield. So this game does account for that, but only if you're moving a unit twice in the same turn, such as using a momentum chit. Although, you know, the scale of this game is about 100 yards per hex because, you know, the frontage of a phalanx was thought to be about, 200 to 250 yards approximately. So you can think of each of these hexes about 100 yards. Well, 100-yard drift to the right per movement seems extreme. I mean, so if you move 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, with a drift to the right, that's 200 yards over from where you were for just moving attempting to move 400 yards forward. So you're telling me for every 2 steps I take forward, I'm taking 1 step to the right. I don't know if that adds up to be quite that much. I may make a house rule adjustment on that drift right. I'll have to think about it. I have played it before using that rule. And like I said, that's where my experience comes with it. It just seems a little too extreme. But anyway, let's get down to actually moving these guys. So the Spartans, I don't know where my tweezers went. I'm going to have to grab my tweezers. So next turn you'll see me with my forceps. Anyway, the Spartans are trotting and their movement allowance is 4. So we're going to go ahead and move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. We'll slide that counter up. And the next unit down here is at a run. A run is a movement allowance of 5, and they must make a tactical quality check after each move as well. So we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see they're out in front there, and now we'll make a tactical quality check. So their tactical quality is 6. So we have to roll a 6 or less, or they're going to take, and they roll a 2. So they pass their tactical quality. No tactical quality hits on them whatsoever. The next is going to be a trot, which is going to be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next is a walk, which are going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, walking has a little bit of a benefit, whereas if they're crossing terrain, such as a hill slope or a river, whatever it may be, they're not going to take the tactical quality hits that a normal unit or a hoplite unit moving at a trot or a run would take. So they are moving slower, but they do get that benefit. A side note on the running units is when they get into contact with the enemy, they will get a +2 to their initial shock combat die roll, which will be very beneficial. So it's using that momentum and the weight, the inertia of the hoplite formation to really smash into their opponents. The next unit was Epidaurus, and that is a trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then these guys, Epidaurus, were running. So they're going to take a tactical quality check right now. 6 or below. We roll 3. So they passed it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So their runners are looking good so far. We have another runner though, the last one, the Sicyon. And we roll 3 for their tactical quality as well. So they pass as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the next two over here are both trots. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how the Spartan hoplite line looks at the end of their first activation. You can see where the line is no longer straight at this point in time. It it has its peaks and its valleys. Of course, you got the walker down here in the middle, which actually that's not too bad of formation to have. If anything, I think it's okay at this point. So another side note is a lot of players will take their leader and move them behind a unit in their activation. That way they're not involved in combat, etc. I probably won't do that because I want to show you guys the way leaders work in combat, the way they can be killed, how easily they can be killed, and what happens if they are killed. But anyway, overall, I think this was a good move for the Spartan line here. They had 3 runners, so they're going to have 3 units that are going to get +1 or +2 modifiers in their initial shock combats. And they didn't take any cohesion with any 3 of those units there. None of them broke formation. So what you're seeing here is a highly trained hoplite army, basically, that's able to move quickly for the most part and maintain its formation. So that's going to be the end of the Spartan activation. Now we are going to draw a chit out of the cup here, and the chit is going to be Spartan momentum. So I don't think the focus is on there. So it's the Spartan momentum chit. So what they could do is they could choose to use momentum to activate this whole command again a second time. They probably wouldn't be in contact. Maybe the runners would. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, the runners would get in contact, but nobody else would. Everybody else would be 1 short, and we would take tactical quality checks because we're moving twice. Plus, there's that drift right rule, but we're not using that drift right rule. I don't think we're going to use that this game. It's kind of extreme. Maybe 2 spaces and say he wants to move forward, maybe go 1, 2, and then start your move. That might be a more feasible drift right situation. But anyway, so what we're going to do here is we're going to try with the Spartans is to take control of the Thessalian cavalry here. And what do they need? If that die roll is 6 to 9, the Thessalians are now controlled by the Spartan player. So on a 6 to 9, those cavalry are going to switch sides. And we rolled a 7. So those cavalry are going to switch sides and join the Spartans here. And that's it. So the, let's see what their tactical quality is. 6 and 5 over here. So that's a total of 11 route points that are going to go against the Athenians. So I'm going to mark that on our little tracker here. So they now have 11 route points already on their army. And these units now belong to the Spartans. Can they take an activation now? That's the question. Let's see. Let's see. But necessary. Controlled by the Spartan player and immediately activate. So yes, they do get to activate at this time. So they could, realistically, they could just change their facing and slam into the side there. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to ride away and join the Spartan lines first. I think that's probably what they would rather do in real life as opposed to just slam in unsupported and try and just have a whole bunch of hee-haw fun. So what they're going to do, they do have a movement value of 8, so they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they're going to change facing. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the Thessalonians. Okay, so sorry about that. My battery died there, so I had to do a quick charge on it. Now I'm back. No, it cut off mid-sentence when I was moving this cavalry. So changing the facing with these is 1 movement point per hex side, as you saw me counting out there. The reason they were able to move out without being considered engaged is because they didn't move adjacent adjacent to the enemy from a non-adjacent hex. So they didn't move from here to there or from here to here. Then they would be required to engage in shock attack from that point. But since they didn't move from outside and move into being an adjacent hex, they're not required to do so. Like I said, they could have engaged in shock activity from here, from already being adjacent there, but they would have had to make a TQ check to do that. So anyway, they withdrew. They kind of went here. So they did have 1 movement point left. Let's just make them here and here. That way they're a little bit safer. I don't think the hoplites have much of a chance to get out there towards that direction. So you know what, we'll make them these outside hexes actually to make it even safer at this point. So that way they would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then changed their facing. That would have been a total of 8. So that's where they are at this point in time. So it looks like they are all good to go. Now it's going to be the Athenian turn. There's 2 activation chits left in the cup here, the momentum and the hoplites. The momentum chit came up. They're going to pass on that momentum. They're just going to use their regular hoplite activation, which is the last chit in the cup. And so we'll put them both. We'll put all the chits back in the cup now, since we know that's it. So now the Athenians are going to activate, and his commander is going to give an all-around advance order in line. And we did not flip the units that are out of command now. So pretty much every unit from this one over is now out of command. We'll just put that one there to remind us. We're not going to flip all the rest of them, but we do know that all the units from here over are now out of command. Now we're going to go ahead and move the Athenians, like I said. So once again, we are going to refer, where is it, to this chart right here on the bottom, the Hoplite Advanced Table. So we are going to start off with the Athenian unit over here on the Athenian left flank, and we rolled a 7 there. A 7 is going to be a run, so they're going to run. The next is going to be the 2nd Athens Regiment, 8. 8 is going to be a run, and it looks like the Athenians are pretty upset that the cavalry left. The next Athenian Hoplon unit is going to be 1, which is a walk. They don't seem to be in that much of a hurry. They must not have seen the cavalry leave the flank. Either that or they think that they were going out to attack the Spartans. The next one is a 3 over here. I'm not sure if you saw that die roll there. That's a 3, which is going to be a trot. And the next one is going to be a 5, which is also a trot. And the next one is a 2, which is going to be a trot as well. And you know what? I only have 1 counter left. That's interesting. Did they not supply enough counters here? There they are. I knew I was missing some. So anyway, the next one is going to be a 7, which is a run. And then we have Argos over here, which is a 7. That's another run. Walk, walk, walk. Let me find some runs. There's a run. And then we have Athens over here. It's a 3. That's going to be a trot. Second to last is another Athens. That's a 7. It's going to be a run. These hoplites are ready to go, it looks like. There's a run counter. And the last one with the commander, it's going to be a 5, which is a trot. So there we have the Athenian momentum all laid out in front of us. So this running unit right here is going to have to take a tactical quality check. So after it comes after each move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this is a run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're now in contact. 1, they're a walk. 2, 3. They are a trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're a trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're a trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're a run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're now in contact. They're a run. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, let me start that over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're now in contact. It's a trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're running. And these guys are trotting. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now let's do the TQ hits on all the guys that ran. So they did a run. Their tactical quality is 6. We rolled a 7. So it looks like they're nowhere near as disciplined as the Spartans were and their allies when they were advancing. There's one tactical quality hit. On this second Athens unit, we rolled a 5. They're okay. This unit also ran. They need a 6 or less. And we rolled a 4. They're okay. And this is a low quality hoplite unit, 5 TQ. And they rolled a 7, so they're going to take a hit as well. And who else ran? Did they run? Yes, they ran right there. So they need a 6 or less. And they roll a 0, so they're okay. So we took a tactical quality hit here, or a cohesion hit. We took a cohesion hit there and a cohesion hit there as well. So that's where we're at. And we will now go ahead and show you what some combat looks like, because we do now have some currently engaged units that are going to engage in shock combat. So these two will be fighting, as well as these 4 right here will be performing shock combat. So let me get back over here and get the stuff ready for that, and then we'll take another shot. Okay, so let's go ahead and get on down to it here. So in shock combat, these steps have to be resolved in order all together. So if there's, I think there's like 6 steps in shock combat. So you do step 1 for everybody, and then step 2 for everybody, and then step 3 for everybody, and so on. This prevents players from taking advantage of attacking, resolving combats in a certain order to gain very specific and unhistorical advantages, basically. So all these steps, like I said, have to be taken in order. The first thing that we do, now that we've determined on the attackers, you can see I've placed shock no TQ check, shock no TQ check, shock no TQ check for the attackers. The defenders, you don't place these counters, but they are going to have to take a TQ check to receive the charge and see what kind of damage the initial charge has. If, for instance, let's say unit wheels, if this phalanx was in these two hexes instead of parallel to their opponent, and they had to wheel into their opponent to shock, then they would have to do a TQ check in order to proceed with that shock attack. But for the most part, unless you're doing special maneuvers, you're not going to have to TQ check to shock. So there are exceptions to that rule, but for depending on troop type, like if you're familiar with the chariot warfare, stuff like that, we won't get into that. We're keeping this game simple. That's what we're playing this one for. So we've placed those counters on those, and now we have to determine who's in combat. So these two units are in combat. There's nobody else adjacent to anybody else here. So that's pretty simple there. We know those two units are going to be fighting. Over here, there's 4 units total. And how it works is a defending unit cannot be attacked more than once in any activation phase. So let's say if this green hoplite unit wasn't there, let's just move him down here. Let's say it was these 3 units right here. He would only be able to be attacked once in this activation. So I would have to choose which of these 2 hoplite units was going to attack and then perform that attack. If it was, let's say if this hoplite unit was charging these 2 units, then he would be forced to attack both of those units. So that's how that works. If in a second activation in the same turn, this hoplite unit, charged into here, he could attack that unit again. So a unit can be attacked more than once in a turn, just not more than one time in the same activation. So now that we've determined who's attacking who here, this unit, to keep things simple, this unit's going to attack this hoplite unit. This one's going to attack that one. This one's going to attack that one. So now what we do is, as a defenders, we go ahead and we receive the charge. So we have to roll tactical quality checks on these units to see if they take any cohesion disruptions or cohesion hits. So this unit right here is tactical quality is 6. Let's go ahead and zoom in there actually so you can see. So you can see here that unit's tactical quality is 6 and they're being attacked by this unit. So I have to roll a d10 and I have to roll 6 or lower. Anything greater, they're going to receive 1 tactical quality hit per pip above 6. So if they roll 9, they're going to take 3 cohesion hits on their unit. So that's how that's going to work. If it's not possible. Let's say they already had 4 hits on them though, and they only had 2 left, and they failed by 2 or more, and they're over their tactical quality, they're going to rout. And if there's nobody else in contact, then that unit's going to pursue forward, and they're going to run straight smack into this unit as well, and then it'll join that round's combat as well. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and roll for this unit right here. And we roll 7, so they fail by 1 point. So the Athenians slammed into them pretty hard and delivered 1 tactical quality hit or cohesion hit. Keep on saying tactical quality hit. They put 1 cohesion hit on that unit. And now we can go ahead and take a look at these 2 units here. And they have to do the same thing. So we'll start right here, and they have a tactical quality of 6. And we roll a 2, so they are okay. And then the next unit right here is also a 6, so they got to roll 6 or lower. And we roll a 0, so they are okay as well. So there's no cohesion hits to those 2 units. So now we can move on to the next phase of combat here. Let me get that back out. And the next phase So after we've done the pre-shock resolution tactical quality checks, the next phase is going to be the comparative weapons systems. And actually, we checked possible leader casualties, which there are none, but there are no leaders involved yet. So we will go on to the comparative weapons systems, and all units involved are hoplites. Their class is HO, which is on the counter. So we already know what it's going to be. If they were in there, the light cav, those are the only different types of weapon systems that are in this game is LC, which is light cavalry. Uh, we don't have to worry about that as of yet. So we already know what weapon systems are facing what, simply hoplites. And then we determine superiority. There's two types of superiority. There is position superiority and weapon system superiority. Position superiority would be if attacking from the flank or the rear, or something similar such as that. In most cases, there is no superiority. So in weapon superiority, you're going to use a chart here. I need to open it up really quickly. Let me see if I can find the comparative weapon systems. So you have right here chart 8.41 comparative weapon systems. So hoplite to hoplite, heavy infantry to hoplite, etc. That's going to use or excuse me, that's not your superiority chart. Superiority chart somewhere. Let's see, terrain effects, weapon system, unit capabilities. Okay, well, cohesion checks, order summary, leader casualty. Okay, so anyway, we know there's no superiority here because they're all the same units. We'll get to that when we need to get to it. So there's no weapon superiority or position superiority here. So now we check their weapon type relationships, which is that chart I just showed you. And that is going to show you which column to use. Let me break that chart out again. And by the way, here's the shock superiority chart. It's right above the comparative weapon system chart. So this is what you would go. So if it's hoplite versus light infantry, it's defender superiority. That's the attacker type. So if the attacker is light infantry versus hoplites, it's the hoplites have superiority. In this case, it's hoplite versus hoplite, so there's no superiority there. So we go to comparative weapon systems. So hoplite versus hoplite is a 7. So that's going to put us on the shock combat resolution table, which we are going to use the CRT column 7. Now, if it was superior, if it was attack superior, it would shift this way 1. If it was defender superior, it would shift left 1. So since there's no superiority, we're going to use this 7 column here, and they're going to roll a d10 and compare it to that. The number on the left is the attacker cohesion hits, and the number on the right in the parentheses is the defender cohesion hits. So you can see here we do have to roll pretty high, otherwise it's going to be an even combat for the most part. However, since every hoplite unit that managed to get into shock combat this turn gets a +2 to their die roll because they were running. So first we're going to resolve this combat here, which is this hoplite unit and this one right here. So they're going to get a +2 on their die roll, and we rolled a 4, so that's going to be a 6. A 6 on the 7th column is a 2 and a 2. So both of those units are going to take 2 cohesion hits. So we can put a 2 on here. We're going to remove these shock checks. And we're going to replace this 1 counter with a 3. So they now have 3 cohesion hits on that unit, and their total tactical quality is 6. So they're halfway there already. Now we can go over here to these two right here, and it will be rolling on the same chart we already know, and they do get a +2 as well to their die roll, and they roll a 7, so that's going to equal 9. So that on the 7 column, 9 is 2 attacker cohesion hits and 4 defender cohesion hits. So we are going to take a 4 and a 2. We're going to remove that shock, that no check marker. We're going to put 2 on those Athenians, and we're going to put 4 on the Epidaurus. So that takes care of them, and the Epidaurus tactical quality is 6, so they are 2/3 on the way to routing. Here, now you got to remember this guy covered up by these 2 counters, so they're going to be the next ones to go. So we'll take off that no TQ check. And their tactical quality is 5, so they got to be really careful. Hopefully they get a good shot in here because they can't take too much hits. They already got 1 cohesion hit on them. So anyway, we're going to resolve this, and they were running also, so they get a +2. And we roll a 2, so that's going to be a 4. That's nowhere near what they wanted. So 7 on the 4 column, or what was it? A 4 on the 7 column is going to be 2 attacker, 2 defender as well. So we can replace that 1 counter with a 3. And then put a 2 counter. I guess I could have just kept that same counter and flipped it over for them. Put a 2 counter on them. So that's where we stand as of right now. There is 2 cohesion hits on that unit, 3 on this unit, 2 here, 4 here, 3, and 2 there. So that's going to conclude that activation because all the combat has been concluded. So now we go back to the activation phase, which there are no activation markers left. So that's all of the activations. Now we go to the route phase, the route, remove, replace, and reload phase. So first we would do route movement. Routed units must undergo route movement, and then we would do remove rallied units, remove rallied and moved markers, flip out of command units to their front side. So all these units right here would be, if they were in command, would be flipped back to their front side. Even if they're out of command, they go back to their front side. Then in the beginning, in the activation phase, when you're going to activate them, that's when you determine out of command again. So after that, you place replacements for killed leaders with their commands. And finally, you go to the reload segment. Eligible missiles may get more missiles. Finally, the last phase of the game is the withdrawal phase. Each player totals the route points of all eliminated units, to which he adds points for killed leaders to see if his army has reached its withdrawal level. If neither player's army withdraws, that turn is concluded and another turn begins. There is no set number of turns. The battle continues until one side's army completely withdraws from the battlefield. So as of right now, the Spartan army under Nicomedes, they have 0 route points to them, so they are in perfect shape as of this point, although they did take some pretty big hits in that initial charge. And the Athenians are at a total of 11 route points as of this time. So they're about, I can't remember, what do they need? 44 points. So they're about 25% there to breaking already. They're about even now. The battle's considered even now that the Cav has switched sides. And that Cav is threatening the flanks of the Athenian forces. It's still light cavalry, so I don't think they're going to get position superiority even if they charge into the flanks of the units because it's light cav versus hoplite phalanxes. But I will look that up before we get involved in that. So Other than that, what I forgot to do is any units that did make contact here, we can go ahead and we can remove their advance into combat markers here. So we'll go ahead and remove those. Even the defenders, it's no longer applicable to the defenders. We can go ahead and remove that. There we go. And then finally, what we can do here, and I probably could have done that beforehand, is we can put engaged markers on these to show ongoing combat here. So I will break those counters out and continue. But yeah, that is the first turn of Tanagra. That's how hoplite movement works. That's how hoplite combat works. It's a basic example. And yeah, I think I'm going to load this one up as part one and then finish part two off on another video because I think this one's probably pushing 50 minutes as of this point, according to my calculations, maybe more, maybe closer towards an hour. But anyway, that is about it. Let me know if you want to see more as well. I'm pretty familiar with this system for the most part. Switching from game to game, I do have to look up the rules every once in a while and stuff, but for the most part, I can put on a pretty accurate game without too many mistakes here. So yeah, anyway, guys, thanks for checking it out. It was nice to take a little bit of a break from painting. I do got the Dux Britanniarum campaign, the miniatures war game that I've been posting recently, those battle reports. I am continuing that. I have to paint up a couple more miniatures because some of the guys got some extra stuff in their campaign. So it'll probably be about another week before I resume those battle reports. Anyway, guys, once again, thanks for checking it out. Stay safe.